Death is a mystery that accompanies us throughout our lives, an inevitable passage that often leaves us with more questions than answers. And when the time comes to say goodbye to our loved ones, we are faced with difficult choices, decisions that may seem insurmountable. Cremation or burial? A dilemma that afflicts many families, a crossroads between tradition and modernity, between faith and reason. But what does our soul say? What is the right choice to honor the memory of our loved ones and to find peace in pain? In this video, thanks to Buddhist wisdom, we will see what Buddhists and Catholics say about the cremation of the dead. We will take you on an extraordinary journey that will touch the deepest chords of your being. We will listen to the words of a venerable Buddhist monk who will guide us through the meanders of spirituality and Oriental wisdom. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll get some deep and touching answers that will make you think about the meaning of life and death. Answers that will help you find your truth and make the right choice for you and your loved ones. But before continuing, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so that you are updated when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. The setting sun painted the Kyoto sky with golden brushstrokes, while a light breeze carried with it the scent of cherry blossoms. A group of pilgrims, coming from every corner of the globe, had gathered in the temple where the elderly monk Sozin held his lessons. Sozin, with his saffron tunic and weathered face, exuded an aura of peace and serenity. His eyes, as deep as ancient wells, seemed to peer into the soul of every person present. Dear friends, he began in a warm and enveloping voice. Today we are here to reflect on a topic that touches the deepest chords of our being, cremation. But before delving into this delicate question, I would like to ask you a question. What happens to our soul after death? An expectant silence fell over the group. The pilgrims exchanged uncertain glances, each lost in their own thoughts. Some turned their gaze towards the imposing statue of Buddha, which towered in the center of the temple, as if seeking an answer in his enigmatic smile. Sozin smiled benevolently. This question, he continued, has fascinated humanity since the dawn of time. Every religion, every philosophy, every spiritual tradition has tried to give an answer to this mystery. Yet, the ultimate truth remains elusive, hidden behind the veil of the unknown. The monk paused, letting his words echo in the silence of the temple. In Buddhism, he continued, we believe that death is not the end, but a transition. The physical body is like a dress that the soul wears for a short period, only to abandon it at the moment of death. Cremation, in this perspective, is an act of liberation, a way to allow the soul to leave the body and continue its spiritual journey. Sozin leaned forward, his gaze fixed on an indefinite point. But cremation, he added, is not just a matter of religious beliefs. It is also a personal choice, a decision that must be made with awareness and respect for one's traditions and values. A young pilgrim, his eyes full of curiosity, raised his hand. Master, he asked in a timid voice, what does Buddhism think of the resurrection of the body that my religion, Christianity, believes in? Sozin nodded understandingly. Christianity, he replied, has a different view of death than Buddhism. He believes in the resurrection of the body, in the day of final judgment. This is a profound and meaningful belief, which offers comfort and hope to many believers. The monk stood up, approaching the young pilgrim. She placed a hand on his shoulder, giving him a sense of calm and reassurance. It is important, he said, to respect different perspectives and traditions. Cremation is not inconsistent with the Christian faith, as long as it is done with respect and reverence for the body, which is considered a temple of the Holy Spirit. Sozin addressed the entire group again. Dear friends, he said, death is a mystery that accompanies us throughout our lives. We cannot know for sure what awaits us after death, but we can choose how to face this passage. Cremation, like burial, can be a way to honor the life and memory of our loved ones, to celebrate their passing, and to find comfort in grief. An elderly woman, her face lined with deep wrinkles, raised her trembling hand. "Master," she asked, her voice breaking with emotion, "my husband is very ill and will only live for a short time. He is a good and devoted man, but he has expressed the desire to be cremated, and I am very torn between respect for his last wishes and the fear of going against the precepts of my faith." Sozin listened carefully with a compassionate look. "Dear friend," she replied softly, "I understand your pain and confusion. The loss of a loved one is always a difficult moment in which we find ourselves dealing with our emotions and our deepest beliefs." Then he approached the woman and gently took her hands in his. "Remember," he said, "that love is the most powerful force in the universe. If your husband expressed the desire to be cremated, it is likely that he did so also thinking of your good, of your pain. Honoring his last wishes can be a way to show him your love and respect, even if it means departing from the traditions of your faith." The woman, with tears streaming down her face, nodded. "Thank you, Master," he whispered. "Your words brought me comfort and clarity." Sozin smiled, gently stroking her hand. "Remember," he added, "that faith is not a set of rigid and immutable rules, but a path of love and compassion. Follow your heart, listen to the voice of your soul, and you will find the right path to walk." A man in his 40s, looking thoughtful, raised his hand. "Master," he asked, "I have heard that cremation is a more environmentally friendly practice than burial. Is this true?" Sozin nodded. "Yes," he replied, "cremation has a smaller environmental impact than traditional burial. It requires less space, doesn't use harmful chemicals like formaldehyde, and doesn't pollute the ground with the materials the coffins are made of." The monk paused, gathering his thoughts. However, he continued, "The ecological aspect should not be the only factor to consider. The choice between cremation and burial should be based on deeper values, such as respect for the deceased, one's spiritual beliefs, and the desire to honor the memory of the loved one." A young monk, a disciple of Sozin, stepped forward. "Master," he asked respectfully, "what is the meaning of the funeral ceremony in Buddhism?" Sozin smiled at his disciple. "The funeral ceremony," he replied, "is a rite of passage that helps the living grieve and say goodbye to the deceased. In Buddhism, the funeral ceremony is an opportunity to reflect on the impermanent nature of life, to remember the teachings of the Buddha, and to find comfort in spiritual community." The monk addressed all the pilgrims again. "Dear friends," he said, "death is an inevitable transition for all of us. But we shouldn't fear it. It is just a transformation, a change of state. Our soul, our deepest essence, continues to live, to evolve, to seek the light." Sozin made a sweeping gesture with his arms, as if embracing the entire universe. "Life and death," he said, "are two sides of the same coin. We cannot have one without the other. Death reminds us of the preciousness of life. It pushes us to live every moment with intensity and gratitude." The monk paused, his eyes shining brightly. "Before we think about cremation," he concluded, "we have to think about life. We must live fully, love deeply, seek the truth with our whole being. Only then, when the moment of our passage arrives, will we be able to face death with serenity and acceptance, knowing that our soul will continue its eternal journey towards the light." The pilgrims remained silent, absorbing Sozin's words as a sponge absorbs water. And while the sun had now set, giving way to a starry night, the elderly and wise Buddhist master knew that his words had touched the hearts of the pilgrims. But before the lesson ended, Sozin gave the floor to a farmer who told the pilgrims the story of his wife, who had died a few years earlier. "My wife," said the farmer in a hoarse voice, "was a strong and courageous woman. He faced the disease with dignity and serenity, without ever losing hope. And before she died, she asked me to cremate her, because she believed that this would free her soul and allow her to reach nirvana. The farmer dried his tears, then continued, "At first, I was hesitant. I had never thought about cremation, and our tradition involved burial. But then I realized that my wife's wish was an act of love, a final gift she gave me. So I respected his last wishes and scattered his ashes in the river that flows near our village." The pilgrims listened in silence, moved by the farmer's story. Sozen's words resonated in their minds, reminding them that cremation could be an act of love and liberation. One of the pilgrims, a man named Marco, stepped forward. "Dear sir," he said, "your story has touched me deeply. I also lost my mother a few months ago, and I'm still trying to grieve. I wonder if cremation might be a way to honor his memory and find peace in my heart." The farmer smiled kindly. "Dear Marco," he replied, "only you can find the answer to this question. Listen to your heart, follow your intuition, and you will find the right path forward." Marco thanked the farmer for his words and walked away thoughtfully. In the days that followed, she thought about cremation for a long time, trying to figure out if it was the right choice for her mother. One night, while meditating under a starry sky, he had a vision. He saw his mother smiling, surrounded by a radiant light. The woman held out her arms to him, inviting him to join her. The man felt pervaded by a profound peace and serenity, and understood that cremation was the right choice for his mother. Dear pilgrims, if you want to follow me, you will have the opportunity to attend the cremation ceremony that is about to take place in the monastery gardens, said the monk with extreme delicacy. The ceremony took place in an outdoor crematorium surrounded by ancient trees. The body of the deceased, wrapped in a white shroud, was placed on a pyre of scented wood. The monks sang sacred songs, while the relatives of the deceased offered incense and flowers. The pyre was lit, and the flames enveloped the body, turning it into ash. The pilgrims witnessed the scene in silence, moved by the beauty and sacredness of the rite. At the end of the ceremony, the ashes of the deceased were collected in an urn and delivered to relatives. The pilgrims approached their relatives, offering them their condolences and support. The cremation ceremony had left a deep mark on them. They understood that death was not the end, but a passage towards a new dimension. And they had learned that cremation could be a way to honor the life and memory of loved ones, to celebrate their passing, and to find comfort in grief. The pilgrims' journey had come to an end. They had visited wonderful places, met extraordinary people, and learned valuable spiritual teachings. But above all, they had found inner peace and serenity of soul. Returning to their home countries, the pilgrims brought with them the memory of their trip to Japan and the wisdom of the monk Sozen. But what does this story teach us? That cremation is very common in Buddhist rites, because it is believed that fire purifies and frees the consciousness from the bond with the physical body. And that Catholics, despite preferring burial, are increasingly moving towards this practice, and the idea of respecting the wishes of their loved ones who want to be cremated. Let us remember that beyond what various religions claim, the most important thing is to respect our point of view, and that of the people we love.